Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my week number 11 defenses to stream for the 2022 fantasy football season. Inside today's video, I'm going to be going in depth into 5 different defenses that I want you guys to pick up before the week number 11 games because I really like their matchups. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. And if you have any questions about week number 11, please ask down below in the comment section or in the Discord pinned in the comment section. We're going to talk about DraftKings Sportsbook a little bit later. So without further ado, let's get into our week number 11 defenses to stream. We begin with my number 1 defense to be streaming on the week, the Baltimore Ravens, going up against the Carolina Panthers at home in Baltimore. Currently on Yahoo Fantasy, the Ravens defense is owned in 66% of leagues. So if you play on NFL, CBS, ESPN, any of those other fantasy football platforms, that I will note there might be a small difference between ownership percentage based upon site. And I will also note that in some instances, the defensive ownership might be severely different. I've done a bunch of these videos. This is video number 11 on defenses to stream, and I play mainly on Yahoo and NFL, and sometimes there is a humongous difference, like the Ravens defense might be owned in 66% of leagues on Yahoo, but on NFL, maybe they're only owned in 30% of leagues. That may not be necessarily the case, but I hope you understand what I'm talking about. So the Ravens were on bye in week number 10, so we got to go ahead and look back towards week number 9 for the last defensive performance. In that matchup, they went up against the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans, having 4 sacks, 1 INT, and 13 points allowed. Early on in the season, the Baltimore Ravens defense was an absolute pushover. That defense got absolutely pantsed early on in the season by the Miami Dolphins. There were games that the Ravens were losing that the Ravens should have cakewalked because the defense stopped doing anything in the second half of the game. But as of recently, the Ravens defense has caught a bit of fire. And this week, you don't need the best defense in the NFL, in my opinion, to stop the Carolina Panthers offense. Now, last week, the Atlanta Falcons defense went up against the Carolina Panthers in Carolina in a game that people were talking about heavy winds, basically a monsoon in the game. And there's barely any rain in that game. The Falcons defense had 1 sack and 25 points allowed. Again, the Ravens defense is on a upper echelon compared to the Atlanta Falcons defense, who I wouldn't even use to wipe my ass. So at the end of the day, I fully do think the Baltimore Ravens are in an incredibly easy spot up against the Panthers in this game. It wouldn't surprise me if we end up seeing PJ Walker get benched for either Mono Man, Sam Darnold, or Baker Mayfield in this game. I love the Ravens defense as my number 1 defense to stream on the week. At number 2, we got the New York Jumbo Jets going up against the New England Patriots in New England. Jets defense is currently owned in 19% of leagues on Yahoo. Just like with the Ravens that we just talked about, the Jets were also on bye in week number 10. So we got to hop back in that time machine for week number 9 in that game up against the Buffalo Bills, who just had a catastrophic loss to the Minnesota Vikings. In that game, the Jets beat them. In that game, 5 sacks, 2 interceptions, and 17 points allowed. The New York Jets defense might genuinely be the best defense, in my opinion, in the National Football League. This defense has so many key players that it's actually unreal. They don't really have a player on their defense that I would say causes a major hole. Like, there's not some corner on their team that you would just go ahead and target because he's absolute dog shit, right? This team defensively is very well-rounded. Their team as a whole is well-rounded, aside from the fact that Zach Wilson sucks absolute ass at being a quarterback. This spot is great up against the Patriots, and these two teams have played each other before, and in that game, the Jets defense was also fantastic. The Patriots were also on bye. Big trend. There was a shit ton of teams on bye in week number 10, so we got to look back towards week number 9. In that game, the Colts defense played up against the Patriots in New England, and they made the Colts defense look like the fucking 85 Bears. 4 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, and 20 points allowed. The Colts defense really isn't all that good. Played really well under Jeff Saturday on Sunday up against the Raiders, but this was a really good spot, in my opinion, for the Jets. Mac Jones has looked atrocious. The Jets probably should have beat the Patriots last time out, so I think this is a great spot for the Jets defense. Next up, we move to my number 3 defense to be streaming on the week, the Broncos country. Let's ride the Denver Broncos versus the Las Vegas Raiders. 56% owned on Yahoo. Week 10 at Tennessee. The Broncos defense was the only reason why this game was remotely close. Russell Wilson looks like fucking Stevie Wonder trying to play football. It's unbelievable how bad Russell Wilson is. I was genuinely shocked when Russell Wilson hit that deep strike to a wide receiver I've never even heard of, and they scored a touchdown. I was genuinely shocked when that happened, but this isn't a Russell Wilson roast session. What is that called? Where the guy sits on the fucking, like, throne and they roast him. You get what I'm saying, okay? This is about the Broncos defense, and the Broncos defense is lights out. 1 sack, 1 fumble recovery, 17 points allowed. And those stats don't even tell the tale of the game because the Broncos defense was, again, the only reason why the Broncos were in that game. Week 10, the Colts up against the Raiders in Las Vegas. Again, the Colts don't have the best defense. 2 sacks, 20 points allowed. The Las Vegas Raiders are so fucking bad that in the press conference, Derek Carr started crying. He started tearing up. And maybe it's because Derek Carr's time is over in Las Vegas, but I don't even know if you can fully blame him because for years, Derek Carr has been, like, on a scale of, like, who's trying the hardest, who's trying to win, Derek Carr has to be up there. He has to be because this guy's giving it his all to this awful organization, this piss poor organization. Their head coach needs to be fired. This is the coach bowl of coaches who need to be fired. The Raiders versus the Broncos. The Broncos defense is going to shit down the throat of the Las Vegas Raiders offense. This is another defense. All 3 of these defense I am in love with this week in week number 11. But before we could pivot into my final 2 defenses to be streaming on the week, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at DraftKings Sportsbook. They've been on your screen this whole entire time for watching the video. If you're listening on the podcast app, make sure that you leave a 5-star review, but you wouldn't have seen this ad coming because, it wouldn't have been on your screen because it's a podcast. So if you are a brand new user to DraftKings, and you click on the link in the video description down below, and you bet $5 on any sport pregame money line, if that team wins, you will get $200 in free bets. Since your bet has to win, the NFL isn't necessarily the best sport to bet because anything can happen. We see it every single week. The Packers beat the Cowboys. I thought this was going to be an easy game for the Cowboys, but no, the Packers embarrassed them. So, make sure, in my opinion, that you look at college football odds, and I'm going to throw them up on the screen. You can see DraftKings Sportsbook right now, so if you are new and you want to use this offer, I will kind of navigate you through here. So, Ohio State minus 6,000 at Maryland is my first favorite bet to take with this offer. You bet $5 on this, you'll receive $200 in free bets if Ohio State wins. The other pick I like is Florida State versus Louisiana Lafayette. Minus 2,400 on the money line. Bet $5 on that. Get $200 if your bet wins. Make sure you check it out down below. Link in the video description. So back on into things. We got my number 4 defense to be streaming on the week. The New Orleans Saints versus the Los Angeles Rams. 64% owned on Yahoo. But again, I'm looking at multiple different websites. They're not that heavily owned on other sites. So week 10 at Pittsburgh, 6 sacks, 20 points allowed. The Saints defense has been pretty hit or miss from a game-to-game standpoint, but I do feel like just like with the Ravens defense, they have definitely been better as of recently. The Rams might be without Stafford again, and they're definitely going to be without their number 1 weapon, Cooper Kupp, who got hurt. They're saying it's not super serious. I'm not a doctor. That looked incredibly serious. But again, what do I know? We'll see what the doctors have to say. But Kupp's, there's no way in fuck Kupp's playing in this game. The Cardinals defense, that's a disaster against the Rams. 3 sacks, 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery, and 17 points allowed. But Nick Stafford didn't play in that game. It was John Wolford. Sure, it was John Wolford. But this Rams offense has been the definition of incompetent all year long, and now you take out their number one weapon, the guy who actually moves the fucking needle, moves the pendulum for the team. He's out. Again, I don't even love the Saints defense. I just love the matchup against the LA Rams. Final defense to stream. This is where you're getting closer down to the bottom of the barrel. The Bengals versus the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. Now, if this was just the Bengals versus the Steelers, I would love it. The issue is that they play in the same division, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Steelers won this game. 27% owned on Yahoo. Bengals were on bye in week 10, again, a fucking bye apocalypse, so we got to go back to week number 9. Week 9 up against the Carolina Panthers in a game that they wish they had back. They wish they had that game back. That was a bad performance from the Bengals offensively. 2 interceptions for the Bengals defense against the Panthers. 1 fumble recovery, 21 points allowed. 21 points allowed. Again, this Bengals defense hasn't been that good. Another reason as to why you would like the Baltimore Ravens so much that we talked about a little bit earlier, going up against the Panthers. Last week, we had the Saints go up against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense that we also talked about a little bit earlier. In Pittsburgh, 6 sacks, 20 points allowed. Kenny Pickett hasn't been awful. He hasn't been great. The offensive line is Najee Harris is banged up, but probably will end up playing this game. This is just a matchup that I like. Betting against the Steelers offense with the Bengals defense or any defense has seemed to be solid all year long. Again, I'm still worried because this is a rivalry matchup, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to go ahead and lean with the Cincinnati Bengals defense up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So to recap, my top 5 defenses stream on the week: the Ravens versus the Panthers, the Jets at the New England Deflatriots, the Broncos versus the Las Vegas Raiders, the Saints versus the Rams, and the Cincinnati Bengals at the Pittsburgh Steelers. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you hit that like button down below as well as that subscribe button. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. Make sure you check out our offer with DraftKings Sportsbook. Bet $5 on any pregame money line and get $200 in free bets if your bet wins. I love you guys all so much. Hope you all have a great rest of your guys' day. Ask any questions about week number 11 down below in the comment section. And as always, good boy!